You are listening to the People First podcast.
People First is a self-advocacy group run by people with learning disabilities, and People First podcast is a platform to raise awareness about real issues that affect people with learning disabilities in our community and all around the world.
We aim to inform and entertain our listeners by interviewing interesting guests and talking about the things that really matter to us. This is like having a stage to speak out and get our voices heard.
Hello and welcome to the People First podcast. Today we will be talking to Ian from Bradford Credit Union. Could you introduce yourself, please?
Hello, Jane. It's great to be with you at People First, and I love the work that you do with people with learning difficulties. I think it's such an important thing. And you are leading the way here in Bradford, so it's been great to be on the podcast with you today. So my name is Ian Brewer. I'm the Financial Inclusion Development Officer for Bradford Council, working out of the Bradford District Credit Union.
Hi guys, thanks for coming on and talking to us today. We hope you enjoy being on the show.
What is your background and how do you get involved with Bradford District Credit Union?
Thanks, Oliver. So my background is actually international community development. I grew up in South Africa, in Johannesburg. I immigrated when I was 7 years old. And I had the opportunity during that time, living through apartheid, of seeing the disparages of racism that was going on around me. And I determined that that's something that I wanted to try and tackle. So I worked with anti-apartheid groups at school. Following on from that, I always wanted to come back to the UK. And by the time I was 17, I was able to save my way out of it. I washed cars and I dug gardens over until I had enough money to be able to come back and live with my grandparents. I actually went into plumbing for a while. I'm actually a qualified plumbing and heating engineer. And ran my own business for a little while before I realised that actually I was meant to be working with people. And I went to found an organisation that worked with the YMCA. They offered to train me in cross-cultural communication, and I donated my labour as a plumber to their organisation. They trained me and gave me board and lodgings until I was able to go to India. And I worked in India for nearly 3 years, working with the YMCA around India, Nepal, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka. In very early community development projects in the early 90s. So this is way before the community development that we know now. But it was a very exciting time. But it certainly gave me a passion for cross-cultural work, for working with people from other nations. So when we as a family came back from India and we looked around for a place to go and live, we wanted our family to grow up in a multicultural society, we chose Bradford. So we moved here in 1999. I ran community centres in Bradford for a period of time until I got made redundant. As so often happens in the voluntary sector. I went to work for HSBC for a while, so I did banking for 7 years before I left that and went back into community development work until this job came along in 2016. Now, as a financial inclusion officer, I get to work with community development organisations as well as the council, a wide range of organisations, but I have to have an understanding of money as well. So my banking experience came into that. So this is a perfect job for me. I'm very, very happy in it. I'm very fulfilled, and I do a lot of work in the community in being able to raise the idea of finance.
Could you tell us a bit about the history of Bradford District Credit Union?
Jane, that's an excellent question. Well, it's a very privileged opportunity that I have to work for a credit union that was started by Bradford Council. The story goes that back in the early 90s, that there was a recession in the country, and staff at Bradford Council were telling their HR department that they couldn't get loans from their banks. So the council, in their wisdom, decided to set up a credit union. Now, what a credit union is a place where people save together into one big pot, and then out of that pot, they can borrow out of that pot if they need to. So it's a great way of being able to do that. So Bradford Council launched that for their staff first, and we ticked along until In Communities came along. In Communities branched off in 2005, and their staff also wanted the credit union. So we offered that across the district. So it wasn't just council council staff, it could be anybody living and working in Bradford. Until 2015, two things happened that were quite game changers for us. The first was that we got our internet banking. We were one of the first credit unions to do so. So that meant that people didn't have to come down to a branch anymore. They could join online, they could manage their accounts online. And now we even have a smartphone app so people can check their balance and move their money out of their account. The other next thing was, if anybody remembers back to 2014, 2015, everything was about payday lenders. You had the Wonga on the scene, and lots of these high interest, high cost lenders that were trying to make money out of people that were struggling. Bradford Council was worried about this, and they decided to fund a financial inclusion development officer, my role. I came along in 2016, got the post, and I was able to develop it from there. Since then, in 2019, we've moved into Kirklees. So we work with Kirklees Council, and we work across the Kirklees district, and in Craven too. So we cover the corridor all the way from Huddersfield all the way up to Skipton, and that's what we do. So we enable people to save. We have over 9,000 members, all saving into one pot.
BDCU is growing project. What is behind that growth?
There were two things behind that growth, and I thank you very much for asking, because as I said, in 2015 we had 3,000 members, and we've added 6,000 members in the last 6 years, and that's staggering growth. We're very, very proud of that growth. The two things that contributed to it, first of all, is the internet banking side. Internet banking made a big change because it meant that people didn't have to come down to a branch. That means that we were able to get out in the community and people can join. Doesn't matter where they were, they can check their balance, move their money out of the account, make withdrawals that way. Secondly is the staff team. We have an excellent staff team, small team, just 8 people, and that look after the credit union, and they do an astounding job in doing that, as well as a strong CEO that helps us with manage the money, because you can imagine a credit union has a lot of regulation by the government to make sure we run properly. So we have an excellent CEO that helps us to do that, an operations manager, and other people that work alongside me, like Siobhan, who couldn't be here today, who works out in the community. The third thing was that because I'm from a community development background, I came to look at a credit union from a community development perspective. And I started making partnerships, doing lots of different events, getting out into the community. And then slowly but surely, we started working with the council again. And when the pandemic hit, if you remember, 2020, March 2020, just as the pandemic hit, Bradford Council looked at the whole problem and realised that people were being on furlough. And they decided to come to the credit union and say, can we organise a project that's going to help people manage their finances if they're being furloughed or made unemployed during COVID. So we sat down, we had to look at it. We call it co-design. That means a group of people looking at a project, try and design that together collaboratively. And we came up with a COVID loan. And we were able to offer people £450 as a package of a interest-free loan and £50 as a savings start, £500. Well, we got that out in July, so just 3 months after the pandemic hit. Well, it went crazy. It was on BBC, it was on ITV News, it was on BBC Radio 4, and in the Independent, and lots of the newspapers. And that gave us the exposure that actually by working together collaboratively, we could really come up with some fantastic projects. So we've come up with other projects like food savers and uniform savers, which I'm sure you're going to ask me about later, so I won't steal your thunder now. But by doing all of that, by putting a community development perspective on it, that's why we've been able to also grow our membership in the financially excluded sector as well.
How much money do you help people save?
That's an excellent question there. So I'm going to put that back to you. So we've got 9,000 members. Now, remember, we're operating in an area of deprivation in the Bradford District. How much do you think the 9,000 people might save together? I'm putting you on the spot here.
I think it's 100,000.
£100,000.
You're not far off as far as guesses are concerned, because most people guess anywhere between 100,000 and £1 million for 9,000 members. But I'm really glad that you guys are sitting down today, because we look after a staggering £7.5 million for just 9,000 people. And that's how effective a credit union is in getting people saved. We help people do what they couldn't do otherwise.
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money. Yeah, that's a lot of money.
What kind of people use your service to save money?
Another good question there, Jane. Fantastic. You're on a roll here today. So we have three types of people, mainly. We have what we call payroll partners. So these are people at companies. We have 34 companies that we work with, and about 4,000 of our 9,000 people save through their payroll company. And that's really important, because these are people that are working and they're putting money aside on a monthly basis, and then they can come to us and borrow from us. And whether they save or borrow from us, that comes out of their wages. So they don't feel it, they don't notice it. And it's a great way of helping them to do that. Secondly, we have our community investors, and that counts for about 20% of our people. And community investors are people that are in churches and mosques and places like that. They don't need to borrow from us, but they like to know that their money's doing good. So they save with us so that we can use that money to help the financially excluded. And then we have the financially excluded, which counts for about 3,000 people at Bradford. And bearing in mind, 6 years ago, we didn't have any of those. We now have 3,000 of those people. And these are people that are low wage on benefits. And these are people that are not able to easily access a bank account. They're not easily able to get loans because of their credit rating. So we come along and help those people. So three sets of people: payroll, community investors, and the financially excluded.
What is new problems that people face now? Cost of living is increasing so quickly.
That's a great question, Oliver, because yes, these are serious times now for people. Because you've got, it's what we call a perfect storm. A perfect storm is when lots of things happen together that create a really bad event. Because you've got inflation, and we know inflation means that you and I and everybody, we feel that our bills are going up. Something that might have cost £1 last month might now cost £1.10. So that's inflation. Prices are going up. So we've got inflation going on. We've got the interest rate from the Bank of England rising. So people that have got mortgages or want to borrow money, they're finding those costs are going up. And then we got the biggie, and this is massive, isn't it? It's the gas and electricity, it's the energy. And we're finding those prices are just running hugely away with ourselves. It's forecast to go up by another 80% in October. And these are huge sums of money that people can't necessarily afford to pay, especially if they're low-waged and they're finding it difficult out their own benefits. And our new government, that's just been announced, they're obviously going to be looking at that, but we can't necessarily depend on what they're going to do. We have to look at some things for ourselves. And safe to say that we are looking at another project with Bradford Council and other partners to try and help with the cost of living crisis. Can't say any more than that at the moment because it's still in the co-design phase, as we call it. But we are looking to do something that's going to be able to help people through the credit union.
Struggling with money can have an impact on your mental health. What support is there available to help with people's mental well-being?
Well, thank you very much for asking that, Jane, because what I want you to do is just imagine a financial cliff. I want you to imagine a cliff and a cliff edge. And when people come to the end of their money, they fall off that financial cliff. And at the bottom are ambulances. And those ambulances take people away to financial hospital, like Christians Against Poverty, Citizens Advice Bureau, Step Change, organisations like this. What credit unions do is we build a fence at the top of the cliff. We stop people falling over in the first place. How do we do that? We do that by getting into a savings habit. So they put their own money aside, so they have that financial resilience. That helps with their mental health. And we offer by offering affordable low-cost loans. So people can get access to borrowing if they need to and save alongside with that. Now, for the people that have fallen off that financial cliff, as I say, there's organisations, Christians Against Poverty, CAB, and Step Change organisations. And we really encourage you to reach out to those organisations if you are in that position. But by being able to save and access low-cost loans, it helps people's well-being because it puts the control, the independence and dignity back for our members.
Could you tell us more about Uniform Savers Project and how it helps people?
Well, thank you, Oliver. That's a great question on that. And Uniform Savers came out of a conversation we had with Bradford Council after we'd done the COVID loan that I talked about earlier. And there was some money that the council had to help people with mental health. Jane was just asking about mental health, actually. So this is one of the ways that we did that to address that. And we recognised that people were coming to Bradford Council Contact Centre to do with their council tax and not having enough money and all these different things. And we recognised that this was having an impact on their mental health, especially if they were single parents. So we sat down and we looked at these different issues, and we realised that uniforms were a major, major worry for parents, especially coming up to September, as we've just done now. So we had these conversations late last year, and we thought, oh, you know what? Let's co-design a project called Uniform Savers, and let's allow people that come to the contact centre, Bradford Council, Britannia House, and Keighley Town Hall for help. If they're say from a single parent family, let's find out more about them and offer them if they want to save for their child's uniform. And if they had that savings habit they started to put in place and sent us by standing order money into their accounts at £10 a month, we would give them £100 incentive at the end of that. So it would boost their own savings to go out and buy a school uniform. We were able to offer that to 285 people. And it was only just a couple of weeks ago that Siobhan, my colleague Siobhan, was able to pay out those £100. And that was funded by Bradford Council. But it was a great way of engaging people. It was a great way of reducing mental health issues and worry in the lead up to school holidays. And it was an exciting project to be part of. We were very grateful to Bradford Council for their support.
Could you tell us more about the food savers project and why it is important?
A good question, Jane. After the pandemic was in full flow, I have a good friend called Julie Thompson that works for a company called In Churches. It's a charity that uses churches for winter shelters. A lovely, lovely lady. And she was looking at helping food banks. She stocks money, food to send out to food banks. And she was looking at all these food banks that set up during COVID. And she realized that the money was going to run out and all these food banks were going to cause a problem for people. So she realized that we needed to find a different solution to that. And she knew that these people couldn't go to Asda or Lidl or other places we could go. And if you can imagine a ladder where food banks are at the bottom rung, there needed to be another rung in between to the next step up to Lidl or wherever else you're going to go. And she came up with the idea of community pantries. And this is food in places like churches and mosques and community centres where people could come and they could buy food and pay a little bit of money for it, say £6 for a bag of shopping worth £30. So they do their own shop, they choose their own food, unlike a food bank. They choose their own food, they put it into a bag, and for that bag, they pay £6. And she said, yeah, from that £6, what about we put £1 into the credit union to help them save? Remember trying to build that resilience, stop them falling off the cliff in the first place. I thought, oh, fantastic idea. So we sat down, we co-designed a project that we went on to call Food Savers. So now there's 10 outlets across Bradford. It's on our website, bdcu.co.uk. You can check it there. There are 10 sites across Bradford where people save in the community. They come get food worth £6 and they pay £1 of that comes into the credit union. And that's been a real game changer. And again, nationally, that's brought a lot of attention because it's not only helping with food insecurity, it's helping people become financially resilient as well. And I'm very grateful to people like Julie, Tess and Siobhan that help us run that project.
We heard you went to USA to visit the World Council of Credit Unions. How was that trip?
It was amazing. I've actually been working with the Americans for the last 4 or 5 years. I met a gentleman called Scott Butterfield, an incredible man, works with 200 credit unions across the USA, and he's got financial inclusion and community development very much at his heart. So part of the way we've been able to work in Bradford is we've been having regular meetings over those years, and he's been able to mentor me and show me how they do it in America. And I've been able to talk to them about what we're doing in Bradford, and we've been able to share that information. And then in May, he had the opportunity to come over to speak at one of our conferences at credit unions. And I said, Scott, why are you here? You need to come to Bradford. You need to come and see what our Food Savers is like. He said, oh, yeah, man, I'd love to do that. So we brought him over to Bradford. He came along to Food Savers Outlet and was just blown away by it. He thought it was amazing what we were doing for that. And from that, he met the Lord Mayor and he got a tour of City Hall and just loved Bradford. He's amazed with the architecture and the people and the friendliness here. And when he got back, he said, Ian, you need to come over and tell our American people what you're doing in Bradford, because we have a lot more money available over here in America, but we're not getting results like you're getting. So he said, come on over. So I was sponsored to go. So I was able to go at the beginning of August, went there for a week. The World Council of Credit Unions in Madison in the USA is like the headquarters for all things credit union across the world. And they have their own trade association, CUNA, there as well. I was able to meet some incredible people. I went with some people from other credit unions here in the USA as well, and led by ABCL, our trade association. And that was amazing for me because it opened my mind more up to what we were able to do in Bradford and made us very proud of what we do here. And we've now become the first community development credit union. We're working around what we can do with Bradford's model, with the USA model, with other things that people are doing in the UK as well. And we're looking at that and going, well, how can we make credit unions more community development minded? What do we do for that? So we're working on that at the moment. But yeah, thanks for asking for that. It was a very worthwhile trip. And it put Bradford on the map, of course. And that's an important thing.
If our listeners wanted to become a part of Bradford District Credit Union, how can they join?
There's a number of ways to be able to do that, Jane. One of the easiest methods is for people that are in the community. They can join up to one of our food savers outlets. So on our website is that, and you can also Google food savers in Bradford or in churches, and you can find out where those outlets are. So when you go down to get your food, you can automatically sign up for the credit union there. Now, everybody needs some ID and they need some documents to be able to do that, because we are like a bank as well, but they'll talk you through exactly what you need. If you have access to a driver's license or a passport, you can join online at bdcu.co.uk. That's www.bdcu.co.uk. You can go on there and click the join button, and you'll be able to put all your details in there, and your passport or driver's license details in there, provisional as well, works the same, and use your debit card to pay £5 of your first savings, and that proves your address, because that's what we have to do to meet the regulators' requirements. So you can join online, you can join through Food Savers, or you can just go online and contact us through our telephone banking, and we will show you other ways of being able to join if you need to.
Some of our listeners might struggle to meet in person. Do you offer online or remote to help those people?
Well, glad you asked that, Jane, because absolutely. We have a branch at City Hall, but by and large, people join online. So yes, the www.bdcu.co.uk. For people that do join up, we are then able to offer them internet banking, so they can do their banking their way, and they can get a smartphone app. You can have a nice app on your phone to be able to check your balance and move your money out of the account. We also have things like debit card or use of a post office if people need to access their money that way. So we have a lot of accessibility. PayPoint is another way of saving into the credit union on that. But then it's then through our partners, and your organisation is very, very important in that. We're going to be working with people like Adam to do our Money SOS course. So that's a workshop in the community that teaches you about APR, loan sharks, things like building your credit score. So we're going to do a few of those that we do virtually, so people can join very, very easily on those sort of things. But a wide range of partners. But as I say, because we're a preventative organisation, if people are in further need beyond that, we signpost them to Citizens Advice, Christians Against Poverty, Step Change, organisations like that can also offer support.
That is all of our questions for today. Thank you, Ian, for coming on our show to discuss Bradford District Credit Union. We have learned a lot of information that we have been able to share with our listeners.
Thoroughly enjoyed that. You guys are amazing.
Is there anything else you like to add before we sign off?
I just want to thank you, Jane and Oliver. I think you've got some fantastic questions today. You're great interviewers. And I really appreciate have the opportunity to come on. I really hope that your listeners get to grasp much more about what credit union is and how they might be able to help themselves get into a savings habit and access low-cost loans if that's what they want to do. And I'm looking forward to doing some SOS courses with you. and we'll see where that takes us. But it's great to work with your organisation. Thank you for your time.
Anytime, Matt.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you all again in the next episode. Remember to share the show with your friends and post on social media to help us grow. Tweet at us at People First Podcast if you have any ideas for guests or topics that we can discuss. Thanks for tuning in and see you soon.